Yeah, g'day YouTubers. Tinker O'Toole again here with another video. Today we're going to talk about the alternatives to Still's Hexa and Husqvarna's X-Cut. Now what I mean by alternatives is that this is a great chain. It cuts much more than semi-chisel, about 20% faster, up to. And this is probably very similar to up to 20% faster. It has a narrower kerf, and standard 3/8 chain at its widest point would be about 4.5 millimeters, tapering down to about 3.9 millimeters down the bottom where the witness mark is. Both these chains are narrow at the top, so they're narrow kerf, and they're only about 4.1 millimeters at the widest point, and same thing, they taper down to just under 4 millimeters down the bottom end. So they're narrow kerf chains, and they do cut through the wood a little bit faster, and because of the profile of hexagonal on this one, and this one is hexagonal as well. Now, the only thing that I've got bad to say about Husqvarna, and if we look at the picture up the top, now, looking at that picture, that's Husqvarna's X-Cut C85, the same chain as what I've got here. And if you have a good look at that picture, you'll notice that it's got a sharp angle of about around 45 degrees coming in there. Around 50 to 45, it's something like that there. And if you look at that point, it probably extends down about a mil and a half. But if you look on the back of the packet of the Husqvarna, the box that it came in, so if you look at this box here, it'll tell you to use a 732 5.5 millimeter file. Now, the most ironic part about that is you're selling a chain that's it's got a flat straight on it. It's not hexagonal like the Hexa, but it's certainly got a section on it that's straight. It doesn't have that full C shape. And that means that if you put a round file in there, it just becomes a standard full chisel. There's nothing special about it. So you're ruining the profile by putting a round file in it, as you would on the Hexa. But Hexa is approximately 60 degrees in, 60 degrees out. So that gives it a span of 120 degrees. It's hexagonal. And as such, it requires a hexagonal file. So that's what the tooth roughly looks like, hexagonal, 60 degrees in, 60 degrees out. Look at the picture up there. That's Still's Hexa. Apparently it was created for the forest industry, and it only comes in 063 gauge. Husqvarna's X-Cut doesn't come in 063, it comes in 050 gauge, 058 gauge, and it comes in, it doesn't come in 3/8, it comes in 0.325. So, while they look a little bit the same brand new, the moment you put a round file in this, you destroy it and it becomes a standard full chisel chain. Put a round file in this, you'll destroy it. It's not recommended to put a round file in it. It's recommended that you put a hexagonal file in it. And if you actually look on the packet, you can see 5.2 millimeter, 1364, and you can see that the file's hexagonal. So this, to me, is superior to that one because you're destroying the profile by putting a round file in it. So there's no point creating a little, if you looked at the picture, you would have noticed there was a little straight edge about 1.5 mil long that came into the tooth. It was nice and straight. Then it had the C shape. Whereas the Still has a 65 degrees in and it's 60 degrees out. So it has a span of 120 degrees. So the Husqvarna, unfortunately, is they don't sell a file suitable to maintain the shape, unfortunately. Now, the whole idea of this video was to talk about alternatives to these two. And the alternative that I've got is 0.325. And the one that's almost a dead ringer to the Husqvarna and close to the Hexa is the 0.325 with 058 gauge, full chisel. Reason being that the width of the kerf is 4.1 millimeters, 4.1 millimeters, 4.1 millimeters. The length of the tooth is about 9.7, 9.7, 9.7. The only thing that's slightly different on the whole three of them is the geometry of well, this is 25 degrees top plate angle, this is 30 degrees top plate angle, and this is 25 degrees as well. Now, the only other thing is the top plate angle, and that's the angle that the grinding wheel comes in. This is 65 degrees, and on the back here, they're recommending 60 degrees. Now, when I measured it, it wasn't 60 degrees, it was more like 50. So what's actually happening, when you run a file through this, you're going to destroy the tip of the tooth. So as good as what it works out of the box, you're ruining the actual X-Cut profile. You'll no longer have that profile. You'll end up with a profile that looks like that, which is just going to be a standard full chisel with a standard C-shape. At least with the Hexa, it comes with a triangular file. So if this is the alternative, and the only reason I say it's an alternative, you're looking at $63 for the Husqvarna chain, $55 for the Hexa, $25 for this chain called Hurricane. Now, yes, it's not designed or set up to have a hexagonal file in it. It's much, much better to do this on a grinding wheel. And I've set this grinder up rather than have a nice radius on the bottom. It's got a hexagonal angles on it so that it's going to do exactly the same shape virtually as the Hexa, or whatever shape you want. If you want to duplicate the Husqvarna, that's easy and done as well. But if you've got a grinder and a little dressing block, you can dress that to any shape that you want. And that's why I say this is an alternative to the Husky, and it's a whole alternative to Stihl, provided that you've got a grinder and you can dress the wheel to Hexa. It's pretty straightforward. There are videos that I do have on the channel. The only thing that I will say, as I said, this Stihl Hexa is claimed, and I probably agree with it because I've done time-based cutting, 20% faster than a semi-chisel. This one wasn't quite as fast, so the Hexa slightly was better than this. But as I said, if you run a round file through it, you totally destroy the profile. So to me, this is the winner. This is a clear winner. But if you don't mind paying $55, fine. Pay your $55, get your hexagonal file, off you go. But if you want to save a few dollars and you do have a grinder, consider an alternative if you can find 0.325 058 gauge in the Hurricane. Yeah, I've got no complaints whatsoever. I think Stihl and Husqvarna and Oregon and a few at Carlton, Archer, most of them make pretty good chain. I've never ever seen chainsaw chain that I'd say that's absolute garbage. Most of the chains are pretty good. Some might be slightly better than the others, but I think it's only slightly better. Most of the hardness of the chain will be around about 55 well Rockwell, no matter what it is. So, but a lot of people have their preferences. I don't specifically have a preference. I look for great value for money. And if I can get a chain for $25 that can perform pretty good, I don't expect a $25 chain to perform better or equal a $55 chain. And I certainly don't expect a $22 chain to compete with a $63 chain. But this does certainly blow this away if you do profile it properly with a grinding wheel, and this will equal the Hexa if you do it properly profiled on a grinder. So that's why I call it Hexa Alternative, or if you want to call it X-Cut Alternative as well. So there's two alternatives there. Just by getting 0.325, 058 gauge, get yourself another bar. 0.325 is used by a lot of professionals, all right? So, you know, you can get this X-Cut in 0.325. 0.325 is used a lot on the steel saws, the MS261 Pro saw. So it's not like it's a, and it's generally used on saws, around 50 cc's, sort of probably up to about, no more than about 70. But I've got a MS500i, and I'd certainly run it on that. And I can tell you right now, it'll just cut through wood like a knife through a butter, as long as I set it up properly and do it all. So that's why I call it an alternative to Hexa and X-Cut. There's always an alternative, and that's the alternative. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.